Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Welcome, learners. My name is Stephen Kariungi, and today we continue with our topic of discussion, and this is genetics Form 4. Now, previously we have discussed about complete dominance, and today I would like us to discuss what we refer to as incomplete dominance. Just to have a recap of what we have learned about complete dominance, we find that complete dominance is a situation whereby one allele dominates another. So we have a dominant allele and we have a recessive allele. And therefore, the dominant allele expresses itself at the expense of the recessive allele, where both of them are occurring together. So for example, if we have the allele for tallness, that is capital T, and the allele for dwarfness, that is the small t, both existing together, the individual will be tall. And that is to confirm that the allele for tallness dominates over the one for dwarfness. That is what we have learned earlier. Now, I want us to learn a bit something that is a bit different from that, and this is what we are referring to as incomplete dominance. And this is a situation whereby we have two alleles, but instead of one allele dominating the other, both alleles form a trait that is an intermediate of the two. A situation whereby two alleles, none of them expresses itself, but what you get as the product is an intermediate trait, a trait that is neither allele A nor allele B, but it's a trait that is in between the two. So we refer to that as an incomplete dominance. So we can explain that. We can explain that and say that this is a situation where none of the alleles dominate the other in heterozygous state. None dominates the other in heterozygous state, but instead you get an intermediate. You get an intermediate trait. You get an intermediate trait. And we'll use an example here. We have a plant that is called the 4 o'clock plant. And the 4 o'clock plant produces red flowers. The scientific name for the 4 o'clock plant is called Mirabilis jalapa. That plant, one of its varieties produces red flowers and another one produces white flowers. So if you take the red flowered plant and you cross it with the white flowered plant, you do not get either of the two colors, but instead you get an intermediate color, and that is pink. So between red and white, you get pink, which is an intermediate color, meaning that neither red nor pink expresses itself, but they both express themselves in form of an intermediate color, a color that is in between the two. So we are saying that none of the alleles dominate the other in heterozygous state, but instead you get an intermediate trait. So we are saying that in 4 o'clock plant, also known as Mirabilis jalapa. That's a scientific name, so we underline Mirabilis jalapa. Some of the varieties have red flowers, while others have white flowers. If a red flowered plant is cross-pollinated, by a white flowered plant, the offspring from the resulting seeds produce pink flowers. They produce pink flowers. So pink is a color that is intermediate between red and white. So we are saying that neither red is dominating nor white, but instead both are giving an intermediate trait or an intermediate color. Now, we want to show that this can be shown using a Punnett square as shown below. So for example, we say that we always start with the parental phenotype. So we have, let's say, the male, the one that contributes the pollen grains, is the red flowered plant, and the one that contributes the ovules is the white flowered plant. So we have the parental genotype. So we'll use the capital letters red to show that red is not being dominated, or it's not recessive. Then white flowered will use W capital. So in this case, we are using both capital letters because none is dominating the other. None dominates the other. Then in the gametes, excuse me. Then in the fusion, we use the Punnett square. So we have the red from the male plant or the one that produces the male gametes, and the WW from the plant that produces the female gametes. So R and W, R, W, R, W, R, W, R, W. So we say that this is the F1 generation genotype, and the phenotype is all pink flowered, all become pink flowered. So we are saying that the pink color is, as indicated, is capital R, capital W. So none of the alleles is dominating the other. So that is a case of incomplete dominance. Is a case of incomplete dominance observed in 4 o'clock plant. Observed in 4 o'clock plant, Mirabilis jalapa. We can do the F2 generation, that is when F1 offsprings are selfed. We get the F2 generation. So the parental phenotype now becomes pink versus pink. So the offspring here become the parents of the next generation, F2. So now we have the parental genotype. The genotype is as obtained in the square, RW, RW, and the cross sign must be put there. The cross sign must be put there to show that we are crossing those genotypes. Then we have the gametes. So again, using a Punnett square, the female and the male. So we had R, W, R, so here R, 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 W, R, W, W, W. So this is F2 generation genotype. So the genotypic ratio is we have 1 RR, we have 2 RW, and we have 1 WW, and therefore it's 1:2:1. That's the genotypic ratio, showing the ratio of the genotypes. We can also work out the ratio of physical outlook or the outward appearance, the phenotypic ratio. We have 1 red, we have 2 pink, and 1 white. So the ratio also becomes 1:2:1. So basically what we can conclude there is that in a case of incomplete dominance, the second generation, we get a ratio of 1:2:1, both the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio. But in the case of complete dominance, in the second generation, we were getting a ratio of 3:1, a phenotypic ratio of 3:1, but the genotypic ratio was remaining the same. So the genotypic ratio remains the same for both complete and incomplete dominance. So at that point, we can have an assignment. So the first question, explain incomplete dominance. 2, give 2 examples showing a case of incomplete dominance, and on the second case, use a Punnett square to justify that that is actually an incomplete dominance. So we'll stop there. Until next time, goodbye.